Hello, this is Victor and I wanted to do a video to share with you what are the tools that I normally use to assemble and paint my miniatures, explain a little bit how I use these tools, and yeah, I wanted to do this video especially focused to people that is starting in the hobby and they want to know what are the tools that I use more and what are the tools that are not that used but can be useful in future. And here I will share with you what I use, how I use and how I try to keep them working well. So let's start with when you receive a miniature at home and it comes on a sprue. So the first thing that I recommended, and this is one of the tools I use more, maybe as is used as much as the brushes, is the clippers. I have these clippers, and in the past I used to have these ones. Okay, what is important, very important for me, is that one side is flat. This side here is flat. This is very important on these clippers. In that way, when you are cutting something from the sprue, and I will take here one, I will see if I have any example here. I don't have any sprue at this moment on my side. Here I have an example. When, for example, I want to take these things out from the sprue, what I will do, I will go with the clipper, with the flat part at the side of the part of the piece, and I will clip like that. In that way, I can have a very nice cut. It's much safer than trying to use the knife and much faster. It's very recommended. I think this tool should be one of the basic tools that you need to have in your bench. Of course, the next one is going to be the knife. The knife, this one. I recommend this type of knives. It's important that you have sharp knife. This one, for example, I just break a little bit this part here. Have to be very sharp, and you have to be very careful when using this knife. I recommend you to use on top of a surface like this one that will support the cutting. Always cut again in that direction, never to yourself. Try to avoid to cut putting your finger behind, and unless you have a lot of control. I know that a lot of people is cutting like that. You have to be very careful when you do that like that. You can cut very easily your finger. Important, this tool have to be very sharp. When the accidents occur, when this tool is not sharp, you're applying a lot of force to cut, and then suddenly you cut and you lose the control on the knife. So the better. So when the knife starts losing the edge, it's better that you change the edge. You change the knife. Here I have more razors. In case I always have razors, because when I see that the knife is not cutting very well, I change the razor. Important to use a good tool. In the past I used to have this tool, this type of tools that are very cheap, that the knife is not well placed in position and is moving up and down, is not useful. Okay, let me put some more light, maybe this will help. So the cheap tools will not help to you and are more risky and can cause you more accidents. So use a good tool. The ones from Citadel, it worked for me long time. I think it's working very well. The handle is perfect. Now they launch new ones, but this one for me is working perfectly. Okay. Other tools that you can have, maybe, but these are not that, I don't see this is that mandatory. Files. I have different shapes of files in case are needed. Interesting, the flat, this is a triangular in case you have to go to some corners. Hope you can see here. and this is a cylindrical one. I have different type of files, and I have a saw. This model is saw. This is mainly to cut big pieces, and it's mainly when I need to do some conversions. This is nice to have, but you don't need this tool when you're starting in the hobby. The ones you will need are these two. You can remove the flashes, you can advance the flashes with this tool. Another thing that it's good to have is the green stuff, especially if you're going to do, and here I have found that, I had to change the position of the camera because I think it was very difficult to see what I was explaining. So this is the liquid green stuff, and I also have the two components and green stuff. You can have this from any brand. I don't see big differences. I don't use them to model. I use them to repair or to improve the joints. This one, if you use fine cast or you use resin miniatures, I think it's almost mandatory. It's like a stuff, liquid stuff. This is a little bit dry that you can use. Then you will need a tool like this one. I use normally this plastic tool. You can use also this type of metal tools. Okay. There are some different shapes. You use this tool to apply the green stuff where it's needed. Okay. It's like a plasticine. This is quite dry, but you apply this, okay, to cover holes. So this goes very well when you are assembly, if you have open joints that are not well, there are two parts that are not matching very well, you use this to cover these joints. If you use that, normally later on you will need a file to smoothen the application of the green stuff. This is, for me, highly recommended if you're doing metal or resin. Plastic, the joints are much better, and I hardly use the green stuff on joints. And then I think the last touch for assembly, and this is just this can be, depending on what you assembly, you need drills. I use the drills for two main purposes. The main is on the guns. I use the drill sometimes to do the muzzle of the gun. Okay, especially if it's not a scope. But the other use that is very important, if you do monsters, if you do big miniatures that have, especially metal miniatures, I use this to pin the parts, especially if are wings or arms. What you do, imagine that I have to put wings here at the back of this miniature. I will drill here. I will put then a small piece of paper clip like this one. I will cut a portion of that, insert it here. I will do the same hole on the other part and insert. So drill is a nice to have. If you do metal or big miniatures, it's quite important to pin the parts. Another thing that can be useful, but this is not mandatory at all, to have it, clamps. For me it's convenience. I don't need, and some parts are very difficult to clamp, but when you're doing difficult parts, for example a horse, it has two halves and it's on metal, and you don't want to be holding this, you use the clamps, and I leave it for 24 hours clamped. I guarantee that the joint is very good. Okay, this is what it comes to assembly. These are the main tools that I use on assembly, and I think I don't miss anything. I also have this one for small pieces. Okay, it's quite interesting, but I don't use this at all, to be fair. I prefer to use my fingers. Then, when it comes to painting, highly recommend to have a primer on a spray or airbrush. If you don't use airbrush, use a spray. It's much faster. you do a bunch. It's much more efficient than doing by brush, and the application is thinner and is better. You can use black or white primer. There is one that is from, I don't know if I still have it, there is one in white from Citadel, and all the brands, this is the one from Citadel, Ceramic White. You can use this as a primer on brush. I prefer spray. It's more expensive, but it's saving a lot of time, and priming is not a thing that you will enjoy, so it's one of the parts of the process where you want to save time. Other things that is nice to have, you see that I have a pieces of corks. Why I have this one, imagine that I want to paint the head, before attaching I do a small hole on the head. I will show you later on, I will show in another video. And then you pin here the head, you can paint it before assembling on the miniature. In that way you have a good handle, you can paint very well, you don't have to put the fingers on the miniature. I also do that, you can use double-sided adhesive or glue tack, you put it on top of this piece of cork. It's easier to handle, you can move it, you can paint. Sometimes I just handle from the base. This is nice. I started using this recently and it's helping a lot, especially when you want to go to details. Things that I think are very interesting when painting and almost mandatory. You need to have white, you need to have red, you need to have blue, you need to have yellow. So first you need to have the colors of your army, but I recommend always you have some browns. So the colors will depend a little bit on what you need. Black and white are almost mandatory. You will need them too. I highly recommend to have the basic colors, red, blue, and yellow, sorry. And then if you're painting a lot of blue, I recommend to have as much blues as you can to play with the shades and to play with the highlights. I always recommend when you are doing a color too much, I will not use mixtures unless you cannot find the color. I always will recommend, when it's the basic color of your army, to go for a spot color from a company. Don't try to start using your own mixture, especially if you have to paint big bench, because each time you do the mixture can change a little bit. Okay. When painting, of course, what is needed is you need brushes. Normally I use the fine detail from Citadel. I always have one on reserve that is new, because once the Citadel brush starts to being damaged, I prefer to change. How to keep in good shape? I always have 2 pots, dirt and clean water. I always wash first on the dirt water and can finish washing it on the clean water. I don't do too much maintenance, are cheap as a paint, these brushes. When they start getting old, I change them. Normally I change my brushes every 2-3 months. Sometimes if I use it a lot, maybe once a month. The detail brush are the ones from Citadel, are the ones that I feel more comfortable, and the ones I always use synthetic, I never use natural brushes, and are the ones that are lasting more. I also have the standard brush. This I use it to do big areas on the miniature. For example, if I have to do here the trousers, I will use at the beginning I will start with the, sorry, if I use here the trousers, I will start with the standard brush. When I start doing the detail, I will go to the fine detail brush. I will use these two. If I have to paint vehicles or big surfaces, then I can use this brush. This is quite damaged at this moment because I'll start using, and this is a number 6. Or I use as well, let me see if I find it, so this wash with the water vanishing. When you use these big washes, I use it to do the basic coat to the vehicles. I don't have airbrush, so when you do basic coats to the vehicles, what I do is 2 to 3 layers of thin paint. Okay, so these are the brushes I use the most, and then I have the damaged brushes. that I use for dry brush when I need to do, or when I need to mainly dry brush on the bases. These are when they get damaged, open. I hardly throw away any brush. I keep a lot of old brushes. Sometimes I find utility. For example, this one, that is it's good to do fine dry brush. In that way I don't damage my good brush. I just use this old brush if I need to do fine, so a dry brush on a small area, and I don't want to mess around this area. Okay, so brushes, I didn't need any video talking about brushes because I'm not the best in keeping my brushes in good shape. The only thing is always keep the brushes you see here upright. I always keep it here upright in that position. In that way, my brushes is the way I keep them, so I don't do more things on the brushes. What else that I don't forget? Yeah, when painting, other things that it's very important to have: thinner or clean water. I prefer thinner. Thinner have the right viscosity and the right surface tension. Okay, this is the Lamian medium from Citadel. The other day Ross in my painting store was sharing with you varnishes from thinner from other brands that are sold in bigger bottles. And then I have matte varnish and gloss varnish, and it is to do some effects. They are not mandatory, but it's good to have them. Okay. Other thing, when you finish painting, if you are going to use a lot your miniature, I recommend a thin layer of purity seal. I have a video explaining how to do that, especially if you use powders. I recommend a thin layer of varnish. I use purity seal, it's working perfectly for me. If you follow the instructions, you do thin layer from far, it will give a very final touch, and it's not noticeable. I have miniatures varnished and unvarnished. You cannot distinguish if they are varnished or not. Of course, when you're using this, you have to use it outdoors or below a humid structure, because I don't have any at home. I normally use it outdoors on my garden, in my garden, sorry. Other things that are nice to have, but you don't need to have. I have powders. Powders are great to do dust effects, to do dirt effects, to do rust effects. Here in the bases is how I create this, the looking of this, like healthy looking on the base. I use powders just directly here. You want to do rust effects on brass, bronze colors. This is working perfectly. I highly recommend it. You want to do blood effects. This is working very well. Or you can use as well some gloss paint. I think I still have it. Check. I don't have it here, but you can use a gloss paint from Tamiya mixed with a little bit of dark red or black. It will work as well. But this is way today, this technical paint from Citadel, Blood for the Blood God. Works perfectly, gives very nice effects. You want an easy way to do rust? I have a video showing how to use these two ones. Okay, you can look in the archive. If you're interested, I can repeat the video if you want it on a miniature. But you apply first this one, and then you do dry brush with that one. It will give a very hard dry brush. And the last one, this is to do cracking effects on the bases. It will make the appearance of dry matte. So these are more or less things. I also have a video about basing. Basing, there are a lot of things. I will not go into details on basing, on how to base your miniatures. Here I just wanted to share with you some things, some basic things, and some are not that basic, but to to work. Yeah, I was forgetting one thing. The glue. Use plastic glue for plastic. Never use that on resin. This is not gluing resin. It's gluing just polystyrene. And polystyrene is the gray plastic. Is this plastic? The one that came with the sprue on the boxes. The one that came with this type of sprues. The other one that is whitish or pale gray is not working. Okay, this one. If you want to glue the sun on the base I use a PVA glue or white glue. Okay, so this is the one used to glue wood. Use this one, works perfectly. Can do also a video explaining how to use this one if you're interested. Here I just want to give overview of the different things to use. And then to glue metal, I use super glue. I use other brands. I think super glue is the one that is working best for me. I don't know. I haven't used all the other brands, but I will not go for the cheap brands. I will pay money because it's nothing more upsetting than that the model is disassembling in the middle of the pattern. At least for me, it's very upsetting. I use this one, or I used to use this one. As you see here, I have some tape around the neck. This is a very old one and it's dry, so it's not useful anymore. But this one with the brush is also working very well. This is completely dry at this moment. It's not working. This is why I bought a new one. I always have the tools that I use a lot, or the things that I use a lot. I try to have two of them, one of them in reserve. It's very upsetting that I want to do something I cannot do that. So these are mainly the things that I use most. I don't think I have more tools to share with you that are important for the hobby. So if I do just a review, clippers, knife and glue for the assembly. These all look tight depending what you want to assemble. Key. Green stuff if you do metal or resin. At least two size of brushes for painting. The colors that you need to paint and especially primer. Black or white primer. This is, I don't use it for all my miniatures, a lot of people use it for all. This is nice or must have depending on the use you do on the miniatures. And this is all what I want to share in that video. Let me know if you are interested to know more details in some of the things that I share here in the video and how I use them. I can do more detailed tutorials here. It just was an overview of the different things and a little bit of explanation of what I use for when I assemble and paint my miniatures. So thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you find something useful in that video. And please leave your comment below, like if you like it and subscribe if not subscribed. Thanks a lot and see you again later. Bye!